Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sir Jude, and this is now the second half of the reviewer for the upcoming master test. So let's start going. The second half of second quarter is focused on light, reflection, refraction, as well as mirrors and lenses. So light waves can travel with and without a medium. They travel the slowest in one blank and the fastest in two blank at a speed of 3 blank meters per second. So light travels the slowest in solids and the fastest in vacuum at a speed of 3 times 10 raised to positive 8 meters per second, which is one of the constants that we had during the pyramid formula manipulation. So number 4, given the density of each solid media in grams per ml, so we have ice, glass, diamond, table salt, acrylic plastic, how will you arrange the 5 media to where light will travel from slowest to fastest and why? So our arrangement is from slowest to fastest. So in which kind of medium do light travels slowest? So densest media, and light travels the fastest in least dense media. Okay. So given the density, how do we know which is the densest and the least dense? So all we have to do is look at the exponents. So you only have two exponents here, -1 and 0. So because 0 is greater than -1, then we expect that all values in 0 are heavier or denser compared to ice, no? But we have four options pa. We have glass, diamond, table salt, and acrylic plastic. So because all of them have 0 as their exponent, then we have to rely on the coefficient. And the densest of the 5 happens to be diamond, followed by table salt, and then glass, and then acrylic plastic, and the least dense of the media and to where the light will travel the fastest is ice. All right, so these are the electromagnetic properties of the light, specifically the visible spectrum. Let's move on to light transmission. In light transmission, the next slide features three tough plastic covers concealing a tray of plastics. How will you classify the plastic covers according to their light transmission ability and justify why? So we have three covers, wherein in cover number 1, you don't see the plastics anymore. In cover number 2, you clearly and completely see the plastics. And in cover number 3, you can still see the plastics, but they are barely visible or blurry. So therefore, cover number 1 is considered opaque. Cover number 2 is transparent. And cover number 3 is translucent, right? So opaque objects completely absorb light. They never transmit any light. That's why hindi nyo na makita yung plastic sa likod ng cover. Transparent objects like cover number 2 completely transmit and never absorb any light. That's why you can clearly see the plastics. And lastly, cover number 3 is translucent because translucent objects partially transmit and absorb light. Then therefore, may nakita pa kayong plastic although barely visible or blurry na lang. So this is how you differentiate and compare objects according to their light transmission abilities. Let's move on to reflection. Reflection is a property of light wherein light waves seeks blank from the surface they strike upon. So the missing word is bounce. A, which is top left image, and B, which is the bottom left image, depict different types of reflection. 7. How will you classify the figures according to the reflection types and why? So in letter A, you see light waves bouncing off evenly because they have an even surface. When we say even, it's considered flat and smooth. No? So therefore, we classify letter A as specular reflection. You have even reflections brought by even, flat, smooth surfaces. By contrast, in letter B, you have an uneven surface. So it's either rough or distorted. And as a result, we have uneven reflections as well. Therefore, figure B is classified as diffuse reflection. Okay, so that is how you classify figures according to their reflection types. Now, speaking of specular reflection, so below are ray diagrams of thin beam flashlights pointed to a plane mirror with a protractor above them. The question is, what are theta I and theta R? So these two diagrams are offshoots of specular reflections because the our surface, which is a plane mirror, is considered even, flat, or smooth. But anyway, we're here to talk about theta I and theta R. When we say theta I, this is the angle between the normal line, just this one, and the incident ray. Therefore, this space here, that's the theta I or the angle of incidence. By contrast, theta R is the angle between the normal line and the reflected ray. Okay, so this gap here. So in our protractor, the incident ray here is positioned 15 degrees from the plane mirror, while the reflected ray is also positioned 15 degrees from the plane mirror. So how we're going to solve for theta I and theta R. So for theta I, all we have to do is just subtract 90 degrees, which is the angle of the normal line because it's perpendicular from the reflective surface to the incident ray, which is 15 degrees. So 90 degrees minus 15 degrees, that will give you 75 degrees. Okay, so that's theta I. And because we expect the light to bounce, then therefore the theta R will automatically be 75 degrees as well. Okay, you have even reflection because you have an even surface. Therefore, this diagram follows the law of reflection. All right, let's move on to the other one. In the other diagram, you have the incident ray, which is 60 degrees from the plane mirror, and the reflected ray, which is also 60 degrees from the plane mirror. And once again, the normal line is 90 degrees from the plane mirror. So to get theta I, you have 90 degrees minus 60 degrees. And that will give you a difference of 30 degrees. And because we have specular reflection, we expect that the theta R will also be equal to theta I, which is also 30 degrees. Okay? So, for the second time, specular reflections have even reflections because they have smooth surface, so therefore theta I will be equivalent to theta R, which follows the law of reflection. All right, let's move on to the other property of light called refraction. Refraction is a property of light wherein light waves, nine blank, from the surface they strike upon. If reflection if reflection bounces light waves, refraction bends light waves. Ayan, na bigay ko na yung sagot. So number 10, which pair of diagrams epitomize refraction and why? So you have a bowl of water in front of umbrellas, and then you have a sunset, mountains, and a glass of water with a long bent straw. So the pair of diagrams that epitomize a fraction are the bowl of water and the three glasses of water with a bent straw. So why do they epitomize a fraction? So in the bowl of water, you can see that when you see or when you envision the umbrella, no, inside the bowl of water, it's inverted as well as magnified, suggesting that light waves bent because of differences in density. So you have the bowl of water, which is solid, and water itself, which is liquid. And on the second picture, which is three glasses of water with a long bent straw, no? So you can see that the portion of the straw that was submerged in water was magnified compared to the portion of the straw that was not submerged in water, suggesting light waves bent. Okay, so that's the difference between refraction and reflection. And these two properties, reflection and refraction, actually play a significant role when it comes to the interaction of light waves with mirrors and lenses. So number 11, characterize the optical devices according to their number and type of curvature and whether they are converging or diverging. So you have smiley face placed infinitely away in front of the mirror or the lens. So let's start with number 1. You have the smiley face placed in front of a mirror with one curvature inward. Okay, so because you have one curvature, this is a mirror, and you have an inward curvature, then therefore this is a concave mirror. And you have actual light rays intersecting, you have actual light rays bouncing at the mirror and then intersecting at the focus. So therefore, concave mirror is considered converging. Okay, next. For the second ray diagram, you have an optical device wherein you have two curvatures, and both curvatures are considered inward as well. So because this is inward, we can also call this as concave, but since there's two of them, then therefore we classified it as a biconcave lens. Okay, so we can see that the way that the light waves behave is that the light waves, when they strike the lens, no, they bend, so there's a fraction, and then they start to spread out. At that point, we can already deduce that biconcave lens is diverging. But if you want to form an image with biconcave lenses, all we have to do is to extrapolate or extend the actual light rays using imaginary lines in front of the lens, and then have them meet or intersect at F1 or focus number 1. And there you go. Next, third optical device. In the third optical device, the smiley face is once again placed infinitely in front of the optical device. So we have one curvature in which the reflective side is facing outward, no? Or the smiley face is facing the outward curvature of the mirror. So yes, technically this one is a mirror, but since this one has an outward curvature, then therefore we will classify it as a convex mirror. So light waves in convex mirror, when the object is placed infinitely away from it, no, they bounce, but as they bounce, they start to spread out. So therefore, convex mirrors are diverging. If you want images to form in convex mirrors, and therefore we have to extrapolate or extend the actual light rays using the imaginary light rays at the backside of the mirror using imaginary rays, and then have them meet or intersect at the back focus. All right. Now, for the last optical device, we have the smiley face, and whether you designate it at front or at the right side of the optical device, it has two outward curvatures, meaning that it is a lens, specifically a biconvex lens. So the actual light rays bend as they strike the biconvex lens, and they meet or intersect at f2. So therefore, biconvex lens is considered converging. Okay, so let's now have the LOST interpretation of images formed by mirrors and lenses. Let's have our first problem. The Jonathan Byers Funko Pop stands 4.5 inches tall and is 2.8 inches from a mirror with a focus of 8.2 inches. So our object, the Jonathan Byers Funko Pop, is 4.5 inches tall, and it is 2.8 inches in front of a mirror with a focus of 8.2 inches. The first question is, what mirror faces the Funko Pop? So the mirror has one outward curvature, then therefore we classify it as convex or diverging mirror. Number two, how long is the radius of curvature of the mirror? So radius of curvature pertains to letter C, which is twice the value of the focus. So we have 2 times 8.2 inches, giving us a radius of curvature of 16.4 inches. Third question, where is the Funko Pop image formed? The Funko Pop image is encircled in yellow. It is formed with the right side, otherwise known as the back part of the mirror. Okay, let's have more questions regarding the Jonathan Byers Funko Pop. How will you describe the orientation of the Funko Pop image and why? So as we can see, no, the Funko Pop image was formed at the upper top right portion of the optical axis. And by looking at the bangs, no, we can see that the left and right portions of the images were reversed. So we will classify, or we will describe the orientation of the Funko Pop image as upright and laterally inverted. Because the left and right sides of the Funko Pop is reversed while maintaining the orientation of the image the same as the object. Okay? How would you describe and estimate the size of the Funko Pop image? So as we can see, the image is smaller compared to the object, so therefore it's reduced. And without performing any calculations, no, knowing that the height of the Funko Pop object is 4.5 inches, we can assume that the height of the image will now be less than 4.5 inches. Last question for this slide. How is the Funko Pop image formed? The Funko Pop image was formed by the intersection of broken lines, which represent imaginary light rays. So therefore, we classify the Funko Pop image as virtual. All right. So let's have another uh, problem for mirrors and lenses. Okay. A 15.88 millimeter tall train is 11.35 millimeters in front of a lens with a radius of curvature of positive negative 9.70 millimeters. What lens faces the toy train? So our lens here has two outward curvatures, therefore the lens is biconvex or converging. Number two, how long is the focus of the lens? We don't have an explicit focal length of the lens, but what we do have is 2f1 and 2f2, which is negative and positive 9.70 millimeters respectively. So if we have 2f, which is already 9.17, how do we obtain the value of f? So all we have to do is just divide 2f1 by 2. And that will give us negative 4.85 millimeters as f1 and positive 4.85 millimeters as our f2. So the focus of the lens is positive negative 4.85 millimeters. Number three, where and estimate the distance of the toy train image from the lens. We know that according to the ray diagram, the image, which is encircled in yellow, is between f2 and 2f2. Or by using numerical values, it will lie between positive 4.85 millimeters and positive 9.70 millimeters. Okay, a couple more questions for this problem. How will you describe the orientation of the toy train image and why? So we can see that the toy train image was formed at the bottom right part of the optical axis. Therefore, it was flipped upside down. So therefore, the image is considered inverted. Second to the last question. How will you describe and estimate the size of the toy train image? So obviously, the image is smaller compared to the object, so therefore it's reduced. And given that the original height of the object is 15.88 millimeters, then therefore we can assume that the height of the image will be less than 15.88 millimeters. Okay, final question. How is a toy train image formed? So the toy train image was formed by the intersection of solid lines which represent actual light rays. So therefore, we classify the toy train image as real. Okay, and this is it. This is part two of our review of mastery tests, which would just like part one will be parallel to our mastery test on Monday. So if you're already forgotten or had qualms remembering our previous lessons, all you have to do is just basically watch our previous video lectures, not only the reviewer, but the ones wherein it's specifically devoted to a specific topic, and you don't have to worry because the mastery test will be done as a group. Okay, so please study and review and prepare as well. So enjoy your long weekend. See you on Monday. Goodbye.